This is Jim Fetzer in Madison, Wisconsin, with Giuseppe Vafanculo in the District of Criminals and Herman in San Ramon, California. We're bringing you all the news you need to know. We begin with a reminder, but the election is yet to be called in spite of the massive mainstream propaganda, support from the social media giants. We do not yet know who will be the next president of the United States because the Trump campaign has launched lawsuits in 7 crucial states: Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. Absent the resolution of those disputed states, 94 electoral votes remain in play. Meanwhile, President Trump has tweeted that Dominion, a software voting company, sought to alter the election and was caught. We have millions of votes that were switched to Biden or were lost. This is a huge matter. Let me emphasize why Dominion was playing such a key role here. They control the voting in 30 different states. The chief executive officer of Dominion is also the chief of staff of Nancy Pelosi. How such an obvious conflict of interest should be allowed to stand is beyond belief. It's also the case that a principal stockholder in Dominion is the husband of Senator Dianne Feinstein. Meanwhile, an analysis of the raw voting data dumps carried out by user Centispeed reveals bombshell news. Hundreds of thousands of votes were switched from Trump to Biden, done in real time. The election theft was coordinated in swing states while counting of the ballots slowed. The data source is well established. Same data from Edison Research used by ABC, CBS, CNN. Just a few highlights. In Pennsylvania, 220,883 were switched from Trump to Biden, and 941,248 Trump votes were lost. Michigan, much more modest. Georgia, much more modest. Virginia, another massive swindle, switched 12,163, lost 789,023. You see what was happening. They have the records for all of this. In yet more shocking news, Rudy Giuliani has confirmed that Dominion software witnesses are stepping forward and blowing the whistle on the massive vote theft. The website everylegalvote.com shows a real election results when you take out the bad ones. Without vote theft, Trump wins with 307 electoral votes. With vote theft, Biden wins with 304. Meanwhile, the CIA ran the operation with Gina Haspel deeply involved in straight-up treason. On election night, President Trump and hand-selected DOD personnel were sitting in a secure command room watching and documenting the entire election theft taking place in real time. They have it recorded in detail. It was allowed to take place so deep state treasonous actors could be caught in the act. Big tech, the mainstream media, and the CIA are all conspiring to gaslight the nation and falsely claim Biden won, even though they know the election was stolen. This is why they're rushing to remove Trump from office now, with John Brennan, despicable cad that he is, Obama's former CIA director, practically crapping in his pants on live TV, demanding Trump be immediately removed via the 25th Amendment. That's because Brennan and the other deep state actors know they've been caught. Trump has all the evidence. We anticipate this information will be presented to the Supreme Court, that the court will invalidate the election, kick it back to Congress, where the House will vote to determine the president, each state having one vote. Republicans control the majority and will easily win. Nancy Pelosi, deeply involved in the entire scam, may refuse to allow the vote to take place, in which case she will be arrested for treason. Trump has fired Defense Secretary Esper and is cleaning house at the DOD to get the Pentagon ready for military arrests of the traitors who carried out this engineered election theft. Truly fascinating stuff. Giuseppe, your thoughts?
That last story is bombastic, to say the least. Well, we're 9 days past the election, and those 7 states are still in play. And it seems as though slowly the pendulum of honesty in voting is swinging more towards Donald Trump, although my associates, friends, and family who suffer from Trump derangement syndrome absolutely think I'm out of my mind, pointing out some of these concepts that and interestingly enough, while you were reading the stories, I went to check out what Bev Harris's blackboxvoting.org site has to say, and looks like somebody's hacked it, and half of it you can't even read. It's just whited out. And so that's interesting, because she was a real pioneer in exposing, at the time in 2003 when she hit the scene, the Diebold utter theft. And now it appears Diebold has migrated into Dominion Software, and that's a Canadian company. What in the world is a Canadian company doing, having any business in an election in the United States? Again, the globalist satanic machinations to push us towards the Great Reset, the new normal, blah, 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 all of them. But what's ridiculous is it has to stop. I mean, Trump probably won, but man, if that last story is true and they're filming Haspel, why have they waited 9 days? If you got that kind of level of proof, don't you want to act immediately and clean house? I don't know. I hope it's true, because I think it's
Giuseppe,
so necessary.
there are other reports I have that we're not putting up because they're yet to be verified that suggests a lot of arrests have already taken place. But just to mention your deranged friends, I can't share any of this information with my own wife. She believes, she thinks it's all on the up and up, and that Joe Biden is our president-elect. Carl, your thoughts?
Yeah, and so hence we need to get arrests. This information needs to be verified. It needs to be put out there, and we need media coverage to tell these people. And that also would require the arrest of those who are in media intentionally lying as well. So we're continue to be in somebody's psyop, and part of me is enjoying the show with the escalation and the increased polarity, but it's all still in play. And if this is white hats, hopefully we'll know pretty soon. I mean, you're right, it's 9 days after the election. Or if it turns out that this is, again, some next level deep state stuff, then the American Revolution 2.0 is also going to have to go next level, and we will.
Yeah, I think that the delays are for legal, technical, other reasons, but there's just a massive evidence that supports what we're hearing. For example, an MIT scientist offers President Trump proof computer algorithms transferred 69,000 votes from Trump to Biden in Michigan alone. Here, a system glitch was also discovered in Wisconsin. A reversal of swap votes removes the lead from Joe Biden. And more is taking place, or we have a full list of votes switched from Trump to Biden or votes erased by Dominion. That would be the story we've just reported. Meanwhile, Dr. Shiva and his staff found evidence of Trump to Biden vote switching, 138,000 votes in Michigan. Giuliani, 650,000 votes were counted unlawfully in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. This would have been after the deadline of 8 p.m. on Wednesday. Governor Wolf's office said in a statement, ballot watchers from all parties have had observers throughout the process. Any insinuation, any otherwise is, he says, a lie. He ought to rather say is false, because that would have to be deliberately asserting something that they know to be untrue. A few days earlier, Giuliani had said the Trump campaign may have sufficient evidence to change the outcome in Pennsylvania. I don't have any doubt. I believe all of these states are going to wind up going to Donald Trump. While mail-in ballots were being counted, Pittsburgh observers were kept out of the room or kept away from the room for 24 hours. This contradicts the governor's allegation, but the governor appears to be complicit. Meanwhile, an election fraud expert had warned about Dominion voting machines, saying it's the optical scanners where the largest chance of cheating occurs. This is a fellow by the name of John Brakey, co-founder and director of Audit USA. He shared that in March, he and a reporter were not allowed access to the election management system in Michigan during the primary there. In Michigan, Dominion voting machines are used. It felt like they were hiding the EMS from the public and from us. No doubt about it. It's the optical scanners, here he reports, where the largest chance of cheating occurs. Very significant, very telling. It's whenever you have an interface that the numbers can be changed. Giuseppe, your thoughts?
Well, Jim, the United States has a history of unscrupulous machinations to swing elections one way or the other, Democrat or Republican. And it seems, though, that this year is unbelievably egregious and very, very clumsy. I mean, you know, some of the stuff that's been done, like in 1960 when old Joe Kennedy paid off some criminal Teamsters to swing Illinois and West Virginia, it couldn't be proven. You know, years later, they kind of figured it out. But what's going on now in 7 key states is just outrageous. I hope they settle this soon. And I really hope that the despicable globalist Biden is not the 46th president of the United States.
I guarantee it, Giuseppe, he will not be. Carl, your observations.
Every week it's looking closer and closer and better. As a professional historian, we do look for multiple independent and expert testimony, and we do have that. But until we get the arrests and until we get media truth, it's the game is still on. And while I think, you know, it seems like this can't go on, I've been there before thinking it can't go on. As a matter of fact, as a historian, I wrote an article, a satire piece of a conversation in a bar 100 years ago with the evidence of the ridiculousness of dragging the U.S. into World War I and the escalation of the national debt at that point, thinking, having the conversation be the same 100 years ago where the guys are saying, this can't go on, right? They're going to be caught.
Well, this is going to be the sting of all stings, the greatest sting in history. Judicial Watch analysis finds 353 counties in 29 states with voter registration over 100%. Talk about how it's done. The data highlights the recklessness of mailing blindly ballots and ballot application to voter registration lists. Dirty voting rolls can mean dirty elections. No doubt about it. At least 42 of Colorado's 60 counties have more registered voters than residents. For example, Denver, registered voter total equals 103% of the population. Early in the year, the nonprofit sued Pennsylvania and North Carolina for failure to make reasonable effort to remove ineligible voters from their rolls as required by federal law. Here's a post. Judicial Watch revealed the results of their 2020 study, showing the total of the counties of registration rates surpassing 100% of eligible voters. The 8 states where statewide registration rates exceeded 100%, included Michigan, New Jersey, and Rhode Island. Many people might not believe this is a big deal, except there are very clear laws that prohibit ballots being received after a deadline from being counted. This is in relation to Pennsylvania in particular. Here's a nice summary of Nevada. Registered 127,000, projected votes 1,277,000, projected 1,593,000. Pennsylvania registered 6,469,000, projected votes over 7 million. Minnesota 3 million even, projected nearly 200,000 over. North Carolina around 300,000 over. Wisconsin only 160 or so. Michigan, a similarly smaller number. Arizona, Georgia. Actually, in Georgia, it's only 96%. All the other states, however, have over than 100% projected votes, so as opposed to voters who could cast them. Giuseppe, your thoughts?
Well, Jim, I read yesterday that former heavyweight boxing champion Joe Frazier, who died several years ago, actually voted in the 2020 election, and I feel bad that I am an anti-zombie racist for questioning Joe Frazier's vote.
He thought this was important enough that he had to cast for Biden, so he got up out of the grave. Easily understood. Carl, your thoughts?
Well, it's crazy. Jim, thanks for bringing such a hard hammer on these news stories. I mean, if this was presented to a grand jury, they would have to vote for indictment and criminal proceedings to further investigate this stuff. So it all aligns with what you're saying, Jim. And if I had to bet, I would certainly bet on the side that this is the white hat performance. This is the turning point on the history of the planet. But you know, I've been doing this for 43 years and I've been so burned before. In 1990, we had the largest meeting of heads of state in world history at the World Summit for Children. All the leaders, including Bush Sr., promised to fully fund, fully support the end of poverty on planet Earth. I was so excited. That didn't turn out either.
I mean, it didn't happen. We haven't ended poverty on planet Earth. Carl, I'm distressed. You might have thought Bush Sr., who was very much into the enterprise, would be out there declaring an end to pedophilia, but he was a major participant. It's all so disgusting beyond belief.
Yeah.
Let me add that all of this is without taking into account that Joe Biden was replaced by a body double that when he out and gave his announcement, it was a fake candidate giving a fake declaration of having won a victory. Other websites are picking it up to a fake audience of empty red, white, and blue Jeeps that had no one in them. Here's a key difference in the earlobes. The detached or pendant earlobe on the right, the attached, non-pendant, where Joe Biden has a pendant earlobe, but his replacement does not. Where even the body language reveals that when Jill's with her husband, she's all aglow, arm in arm, hand in hand. He has a big shit-eating smile on his face with a double, a different, they're separate. She looks a little grim. He's not smiling because this is a complete fraud on the American people. And in my opinion, were they able to manage their way through stealing the vote, which they will not, it seems to me this substitution violates basic electoral laws and would lead to the invalidation of the election in and of itself. So I regard this as a fallback, but it's so obvious. Once the American people saw the evidence here, I think they'd be overwhelmed and horrified by the deception to which they've been subjected. And I hope that will happen. Some websites are picking up on it. Stephen Lindman has mentioned the proof. You have this second website. I think more is to come. Giuseppe, your thoughts?
Well, the globalist parasites, the deep state, has a long history of using body doubles dating back to Hitler had body doubles that they used to use when they were with a massive mind control operation, the Beatles. they used to use substitute for the Beatles if they had had too much drugs, too much sex, whatever. So they actually had lookalikes on tour with them. And the most egregious recent example
doesn't work,
as you have well documented, Jim, is what was it, 7 or 9 Hillary Clinton doubles in 2016.
And CBS,
so yeah, I mean, they just think that
of all the programs
sheeple,
on the planet
cattle,
Earth,
whatever you want to call the American population, will just go along with this gaslighting, and unfortunately, so far they have.
I think it was Hillary's success, where she even had a body double debating Bernie Sanders and debating Donald Trump. And I got to admit, it was a great choice. She was younger, thinner, healthier, much more attractive than Hillary Clinton. And they had a voice box that would give her the ability to project a voice indistinguishable from Hillary. I think that emboldened them to run out their Biden double when he suffered from incontinence and they couldn't get a break every 30 minutes to change his adult diaper. They committed themselves to Plan B, which is still in force. Carl, your thoughts?
It's crazy. Who is that creature from hell pretending to be Joe Biden? And what version is he? And what technology is that? Because it's damn close to Biden. You know, this is another case where that guy should just be arrested, that thing, and find out what that thing is, because it's not Joe Biden. And as you're saying over and over, if the ordinary, a prudent American would see the evidence, they would probably say, yeah, we should probably bring that guy in and see who he is, because it's not Biden.
Yeah, fingerprints will tell the tale, but you're absolutely correct. And James McCanney noticed he'd had some plastic surgery around the eyes, where the actor James Woods is an avid tweeter, observed first that the double had brown eyes, whereas Biden had blue. So there's a lot of convergence here. I do think his identity will be a matter that will be investigated and ascertained. Meanwhile, we'll be right back. This is utterly fascinating that Jared Kushner, who is Donald Trump's son-in-law, encouraged Trump to concede. What this tells me is that Trump had not confided in Jared, that they had a sting in work, that they had watermarks on all the legitimate ballots, that they could separate out the false from the true. This was a form of betrayal, just as Fredo betrayed Michael in The Godfather. It's very disturbing stuff. Meanwhile, if your mind is now open to the existence of conspiracies, which are ubiquitous, please consider joining us on 5 and 6 December for False Flags and Conspiracies 2020. I have 24 experts lined up, world-class, reporting on a dozen to 15 different conspiracies. You need to understand the way in which you've been played in the past. Believe me, it will clarify your mind and reassure you of your own sanity when you discover that things you had questions about were well-founded. Check out False Flag Conspiracies 2020.com. This is a pay-per-view from your comfort of your own home, $75 a day or only $100 for the 2 days. And there's a Veterans Day special now with a 10% discount. Check it out, False Flag Conspiracies 2020.com. Meanwhile, Michael Moore has urged Biden to embrace socialism and to eliminate the Electoral College. I must say, any lingering respect I may have had for Michael Moore has been flushed, completely flushed. You did it. We did it. You stopped the madness. A grateful nation and myself are in a state of joy, hope, and relief, he wrote in an open letter to Joe Biden. He was quick to urge Biden, who has been declared the winner of the 2020 presidential election by several news outlets, to embrace socialism. I see various people trying to take credit for your victory, using their personal agenda to push you away from the progressive left and toward the cowardly center, which believes the best way to beat Republicans is to be a more easily digestible version. They think because Trump got 70 million votes, Democrats should reject Black Lives Matter, AOC, and anything that vaguely sounds like socialism at a time when the majority of citizens under the age 35 prefer democratic socialism over modern day capitalism, and of course, get rid of the electoral college. I mean, after all, who can stand for a democratic republic? Who can stand for the U.S. Constitution? Michael Moore just sold his soul to the devil. Meanwhile, a Pennsylvania court has determined that the Secretary of State lacked the authority to change the deadline to enable ballots to come in after 8 p.m. on Tuesday. On Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, those votes, assuming this decision of the Pennsylvania court stands, is going to lead to the nullification and guarantee Trump will take Pennsylvania. Here's a Secretary of State who's another one of these lunatic liberals who is all engaged in an elaborate conspiracy to steal the vote. Even France's Marine Le Pen has shown a considerable degree of integrity and intelligence by declining to recognize Biden's victory. The mainstream may have declared it, but they don't have the authority to determine who actually won the election. She's argued justice must be allowed to decide the outcome of the election. I am among those who will not congratulate the future president of the United States because I don't consider the game to be over until we've gone into overtime. How intelligent is she, who has herself been a victim of the theft of an election against Macron? This wonderful woman ought to properly to be the president of France today. Giuseppe, your thoughts?
Well, first, looking at that picture of Big Mike Moore in the first article, he looks like the slacker communist cousin of Jabba the Hutt, the giant slug in the original Star Wars, who had Princess Leia on a chain like a little pet in that movie. Man, is he morbidly obese, and he must be really hitting the medical marijuana hard to come out with some of those statements. Secondly, what the heck has happened to the state of Pennsylvania? It used to be like rock solid, either blue collar Democrat with a big helping of realistic conservatives. And now you've got the insane globalist governor, the batshit crazy Secretary of State, and their health minister is this weird, gross, cross-dressing Jew, Levine, who just is a freak. What happened to that state? How can you even take them seriously? The people of Pennsylvania need to revolt and elect actual functioning human beings. And finally, Marie Le Pen, she got hosed bad, much the way Ron Paul got hosed, much the way Bernie got hosed in 2016. The globalists, if you are not on a short leash with them, you do not get elected. And somehow we need to get rid of the globalists and get real leaders in this world.
I agree. And let me add, by the way, your allusion to Jabba, those scenes with Princess Leia, she was particularly fetching. Carl, your thoughts?
That's right. That's right.
Michael Moore is just a flat out liar. And I recommend that people go to another pot-smoking lefty, Jimmy Dore, comedian Jimmy Dore, D-O-R-E, on YouTube. Have you guys seen any of his lambasting videos?
No, but
he's a realist. He's a pragmatist. Yeah, I mean, he at least sees the world for what it is.
Yeah. So the idea of Michael Moore pretending to be progressive while holding up Joe Biden, a demented war criminal, plagiarist, liar, child groping, hair sniffing degenerate who is unelectable, is just the actual opposite of what any progressive would hold up. It's crazy. Let's see. What else do I want to say? So the whole world is watching this show, and hopefully that is getting everybody on board to see the massive, massive criminal global empire, because you're right, nobody gets to play in politics unless they uphold the empire.
And I think Trump is moving with a deliberate speed because more and more of his enemies are coming out of the woodwork and making themselves visible, practicing the art of war of Sun Tzu. Let your enemies show themselves before you move in for the kill. That is my interpretation. My take on what's taking place now. It's all to the good. Meanwhile, Tucker just turned on Fox going after Cavuto for cutting away from coverage. This was pretty stunning. Americans were upset when Fox News called Arizona for Biden. It was much too early. Arizona isn't even going to go for Biden, in my conclusion. The network has joined the rest of the MSM to call the race for the Democrats. Tucker is not afraid to shoot straight, even when big sponsors might pull out. He's undergone that before. When he saw what Cavuto had done, he was bothered. He told viewers, in a democracy, you cannot ignore honest questions from citizens. You're not allowed. You can't dismiss them out of hand as crazy or immoral for asking. You can't just cut away from coverage you don't like. Very appropriate. Meanwhile, John Rappaport has published quite a brilliant piece. The news networks are the Berlin Wall, the Iron Curtain, the Great Wall of China. I told you Joe Biden's handlers had a plan to put America into the darkness. They want a death march. Dr. Michael Osterholm, the new Biden COVID-19 advisor, is calling for a national lockdown. Since he's an economic genius, he claims the government can bail out everyone in the country with dollars to keep us from suffering. So if you don't think the election and vote fraud are important, think again. Here's a basic fact. The only stage prop standing between the people and the truth about voter fraud are the major news networks. Read that again. Get it into your head. If the networks can't hold back the truth, their walls fall. And then everything changes. Have you seen what's happening at Fox? That part of the wall is already down. Fox is disintegrating. The straight pork-head news people are carrying on with their usual line of nonsense about the election and the new president. Meanwhile, Tucker and Sean are exposing vote fraud. The executives are sitting in a very large frying pan. The heat is ratcheting up every day at Fox. It's a circus of schizophrenia. That leaves NBC, CBS, ABC, and CNN. They're the remain calm crowd, but they have a big problem. They want to engage in an all-out fight by arguing the election was damn real and damn honest. That would send a signal there is something to fight about. So instead, they're running stories about the new Biden administration, its plans for the country. But that's not going to work. Senate Majority Leader McConnell is telling Democrats to stop lecturing Republicans about the need to concede. Secretary of State Pompeo bluntly told Fox, verifying the actual and legitimate count is part of the electoral process. When these men talk, it's automatically news. You can't pretend they're not talking. So the networks do report their statements and then pretend nothing has happened. It's like the old Soviet Union trying to keep its citizens from learning about the Beatles. The television anchors at CBS, NBC, ABC, and CNN know what's going on. They realize the vote fraud story is exploding all over the world. They know it's not going away. They also know it's legit. After all, the networks made the calls and projection of victory for Biden. They're in the middle of the fraud up to their necks. It only takes one anchor or major reporter reaching the end of his or her rope. He blurts out, okay, we don't know who won the election. Some unhinged loon over at CNN, where they hire anyone off the street to report the news, might say, this whole thing's a farce. I just parrot the party line. You want the truth? I have no idea who won. Here's a Zen koan for you. What's the sound of 1,000 virtual information systems crashing at the same time? These news networks look like a giant iron wall, but they're not anymore. Imagine an ocean at night. In the middle of that vast expanse, there is an aircraft carrier. On the carrier, under bright light, sit these networks, floating and bobbing, transmitting gibberish to the rest of the world. The network stand-ins, social media, are trying to contain and black out comments about vote fraud, but that's a losing battle. Twitter is a sieve. Jokesters are now calling themselves President-elect Jack and President-elect Mary and President-elect Carl. Anybody can be a president-elect. For years, I've been writing about the severe decline in the network anchor talent pool. There's no Walter Cronkite, no Harry Reasoner, no Chet Huntley anymore. They don't breed them. We're down to the third and fourth string bench warmers. Lester Holt, the Lurch cadaver, David Muir, the Sears underwear model, Nora O'Donnell, baton-twirling runner-up in a county fair, Wolf Blitzer, air raid warden from the First Iraq War, whose name alone gave him gravitas because it fit with the U.S. bombing runs. They can't hold the line against the army of vote fraud fact finders. This can be the moment. The networks are ready to fall and collapse. If the thunderous avalanche of vote fraud reveals keeps rolling, millions and millions more people will realize and speak out about the farce that is mainstream news. The networks report the election results. They cook the results. They project the winner. They lied on cue. Afterward, they refused to face facts. They covered up the facts. They lied about their own lies. They fixed an election. No matter who is inaugurated as the next president, this isn't over. Make that promise. Take that vow. The rabid culture cancelers are celebrating their victory, their hero, the old man who can't talk straight and should be sitting on a back porch staring out at pastures and hills. These cancelers have no idea what a real fall of a real institution looks like. They will have an idea if we keep going. The news networks are ready to go down below the waves. The term forced estate was once used to describe the press. It meant journalists were supposed to provide a check against the runaway power of government. Now it means mouthpiece for dictatorial government and advocate for a chosen political party. So be it. The networks have made their bed, a bed of lies on every vital issue we face. So let's put them to sleep in their bed and say goodnight. Let's make a world in which they have no part. Why the hell not? That's just a masterpiece. Giuseppe, your thoughts.
Jim, as hopefully most of our viewer base understands, you're wasting your time and you're opening yourself up to subliminal hypnotic entrainment by watching any of the globalist mainstream networks. Tucker Carlson is the only one who dances around the truth. He tap dances on eggshells about the internationalist Jew, the globalist parasites, the level of control, the rampant pedophilia and child sacrifice. Did you know that 1 million children a year are disappeared and stolen in the United States alone? This is satanic evil at unspeakable levels. And yet only Tucker Carlson, in his very deft way, kind of lets you know a little bit about what's going on. You have to go to the internet. You have to find and get on the daily emails of people like John Rappaport. Vet every source, even on the internet. Rappaport has been doing No More Fake News for 20 years. He's rock solid. He's an excellent journalist. There's other ones that you can find. If you're left-leaning, well, find a left-leaning honest. There are such journalists. There are no journalists on the mainstream media. The mainstream media is a globalist psyop. It is the biggest gaslighting in the history of mankind. And if you watch it, you're exposing yourself to it. So turn it off.
Well said, my friend. Carl, your thoughts.
Yeah, the turn of Fox was fascinating for me. I thought that they had turned to white hat, but now that they're going dark again, I like it. It's justice for them. I remember how hard they pimped these lie-started illegal wars of aggression. I remember Tucker Carlson saying to David Ray Griffin, one of the premier 9/11 scholars, accusing him of blasphemy to even question the official story. I remember Tucker wearing that little bow tie that I used to wear. So who knows? It is a psyop. And yeah, Giuseppe, corporate media, I only have one published academic paper, but part of that paper is the explanation, the documentation, and the proof that all corporate media intentionally, knowingly lied to push an Orwellian illegal war of aggression on the Middle East with little Bush Jr. after 9/11.
Right.
You know, you make a fascinating point about David Ray Griffin, whom I, of course, know personally. I mean, he's the dean of 9/11 studies. And your reflection on Tucker's progression, his evolution, his development to be a truth seeker is truly a remarkable sojourn, well worth documenting, a theme to which, a storyline to which we must return again on a future occasion. Meanwhile, here we have a report attacking Trump that he could have prepared for this. This is recording how often Trump had observed about what's going on here with the election. In addition to winning the Electoral College and landslide, I won the popular vote if you deduct the millions who voted illegally. Serious vote fraud in Virginia, New Hampshire, and California. Why isn't the media reporting on it? Trump just said on Fox he'd heard reports of voter fraud. It's happening at various places. It's been reported. Once he took office, he established a Presidential Advisory Commission on Election Integrity to investigate the matter. Chris Kobach, perhaps the most prominent Republican interested in voter fraud, was its vice chair. After less than a year of pushback from states in legal battles, the president dissolved the commission. On paper, the Department of Homeland Security was tasked with picking up where the commission left off. They think the issue was dropped, but in fact, it was not. Because of mail-in ballots, 2020 will be the most rigged election in our nation's history. Unless this stupidity is ended, we voted during World War I and World War II with no problem, but now they're using COVID to cheat by mail. He's got it exactly right. Barr observing mail-in ballots absolutely opened the floodgates to fraud. Trump rigged 2020 election. Millions of mail-in ballots will be printed by foreign companies, a scandal of our time. Twitter found some of these claims of potential fraud to be inaccurate. That is Twitter. So ridiculous to see Twitter trying to make the case that mail-in ballots are not subject to fraud. How stupid. There are examples and cases all over the place. Despite all of this, the president did not prepare for Election Day. The Wall Street Journal reports, among the president's advisors, finger-pointing over the campaign's legal strategy is intensified. White House and campaign aides say aides have expressed acute frustration after what many see as a slapdash legal effort, complaining that even though Trump spent months telegraphing there wasn't enough planning ahead of Election Day, it's just completely wrong. They've missed the big picture. Here's Hillary speaking at a Georgetown University webinar. This is the real Hillary Clinton. This is what she looks like today. Meanwhile, a Texas social worker who bears a striking resemblance has been charged with 134 felony counts of election fraud. Absolutely fascinating stuff. But they got the story wrong. He actually did use Homeland Security to develop the plan to put the watermarks on the paper that would then be distributed to the states so they could track every single ballot. So just fascinating how much they themselves still have yet to catch up to the story. Giuseppe, your thoughts?
I hope this is all right, and they are going to drop the hammer. We really need it. And goodness gracious, that picture of Hillary Clinton, that's definitely the real witch. And it's amazing when you lose your regular supply of adrenochrome, what happens to the human body. So she, hopefully she's not long for this world. Good riddance to bad rubbish.
Similarly, I would suggest for Nancy Pelosi. Carl, your thoughts?
Well, that first article was fascinating, and it just smacked of propaganda. You nailed that one line where the guy just ends a paragraph where saying that the Department of Homeland Security dropped the issue. How could you say that without explaining that? That's bullshit. No reporter would just would say like that without providing any proof. And then to quote the Wall Street Journal as hearsay. I mean, I
know. How bad is that? How bad is that?
But that makes me hopeful that, if we have adults, if we have white hat adults, of course they would have secured this election. Of course they knew. Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. You got it right, Carl. And, unless, as I've said before, unless Trump were a blithering idiot, he knew this was coming. So only a blithering idiot would have done nothing about it. He took very clever, intelligent designs and is practicing the art of war just as deftly as he practices the art of the deal. Meanwhile, we want to hear from you. Fan mail, pro or con, send to live-need-to-know@gmail.com. Live-need-to-know@gmail.com. Here's a comment on our show from 9 November. The Israel policy, there will be a split within the Democratic Party. The extreme left is considered to be anti-Semitic. AOC and company. Meanwhile, mercenary writes, opposite of a conspiracy theorist, Jim. What is the opposite of a conspiracy theorist? A coincidence theorist. They believe everything happens by sheer coincidence. Which one of the two sounds more naive? Is it crazy to believe people will conspire to retain or gain more power and influence? The law of cause and effect results in patterns left behind that can be observed. When the patterns point to a cause, it requires cognitive dissonance to dismiss it. Which theorist is more likely to be the mentally incompetent? Love the show. Keep it up. Meanwhile, here's a big tell on election day. Melania was wearing a dress with, guess what? A blockchain pattern. And I want to repeat, we're in a historic situation, such as the papers that said Dewey defeats Truman. Same here. Biden defeats Trump. Here's another. Giuseppe likes especially. Trump the hunter with the heads of Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris hanging on his wall. I just reiterate, the one guy standing between us and a fate we don't want to endure is this man. It's not about the virus. It's all about control. I now invite you for your final thoughts and reflections, Giuseppe.
Well, I would like to say that to the heroes that are fighting for this election and some type of integrity, we know that you're putting your lives at risk. If viewers remember, in 1992, Ross Perot was well on his way to possibly winning the presidency as an independent because he spoke truth and he talked of a real independent third party. And the globalist parasites threatened his family and his children. And all of a sudden, Ross made a prudent decision to pull out and claim he didn't want to do it anymore when he may have won. And that is only, exponentially increased now. The level of these murderous black op types, both within the government and within the private sector, threaten any truth teller. And so God bless anyone who's trying to fight this good fight, because we do need a lot of white hats. And the only way, as Carl always says, the only way we get that is if we all join this fray. They can't defeat the real numbers. So wake up and let's get Trump reelected.
Carl, your final thoughts.
Well, I hope that Q is true and that this is a white hat show that is about ready to drop the hammer. I hope it is. The idea that it is, as Q frames it, good versus evil, it is for, I guess, decades. I framed it as, okay, so this is a final exam test for human beings. Can you tell the difference between objective, factual reality and spin? Can you? If you can, you can move on. If you can't, then you're going to just be dominated by evil. You're going to wear a shirt that says, dictate me. Wear a hat that says, don't drone me, bro, on the top.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful thoughts. This is Jim Fetzer in Madison, thanking Giuseppe Vafanculo from the District of Criminals, Carl Herman from San Ramon, California, for the brilliance of their comments today. Let me simply add, Ross Perot was a great American hero. They will brook nothing to exercise and extend their influence and control. They threatened his family. I have, from a good source, there have been 26 attempts to assassinate Donald Trump. I am convinced he laid a trap, that he's practicing the art of war. His enemies have revealed himself, and that he is going to take master strokes to defeat them, and they will be prosecuted relentlessly. He began already with the Secretary of Defense, where he's appointed a general who shares his vision of getting America out of the Middle East and putting down insurrections in the United States. I predict not only will Donald Trump come out of this election unscathed, he will have used it, turned it to his advantage to expose his enemies, and history will record this man was the greatest president in the history of the United States. Thank you for being here today. We'll be back tomorrow with the news you need to know. See you then.